share your experience or the impact that you've had through this work?
We may not be able to change the world, but we can change one world.
Miss USA's who resigned from their title recently because of a toxic work environment. What could be done to address it?
When do we draw a line and recognize that actually we have to take care of ourselves first and our health first? We all deserve to live a dignified life and to have respect.
It's engineered beauty versus real beauty. Does it even matter?
I don't think that should necessarily be the thing that we're leading with.
Inspiration for young girls who want to follow your footsteps.
If you just really focus on finding who you are, and then if you can just connect with what's really important to you and what you really are passionate about, then that's when the most beautiful things can emerge.
Would you sing something for us?
No one to tell us no or where to go, or say we're only dreaming.
Oh my God, I have goosebumps. Hello and welcome to our Because She Can podcast. Today we have the incredible Miss International Ireland 2024, Hannah-Kathleen Hawkshaw, with us. Hannah-Kathleen is Miss County Dublin and the second runner-up for Miss Ireland, gearing up to represent Ireland at the upcoming Miss International pageant. Beyond the glitz and glamour, she's a powerhouse of empowerment and advocacy. From starting a fashion blog at 12 to being named a top 30 under 30 female entrepreneur, her journey is inspiring. Welcome, Kathleen.
Shukriya.
Oh my God. I'd love to start this, you've achieved so much at such a young age. And what's inspired you? What's this journey been like?
Well, it's certainly been a journey, I suppose. But basically, it all started for me with a fashion blog.
Okay.
So I actually started a small fashion blog when
at the age of 12.
Basically, what happened was I was struggling with ill health at the time.
Okay.
So I was facing a number of challenges in that regard. And I one day ended up learning about blogger.com, which I'm sure you've heard of, similar to WordPress, Squarespace, whatever you wish to refer to. And basically, I just said to my parents, do you mind if I create this fashion blog as more of a personal creative outlet while I was facing those challenges? And so what started as something that was just for myself ended up becoming a really powerful enabler for me in opening different opportunities that were absolutely unexpected.
Right.
And this kind of organic journey, I suppose, started in terms of learning about how one tells a story, how one builds a personal brand, how one can leverage skills that they find or create to do something powerful for themselves. So
what's the name of the blog?
It was very original. It was called Hannah's Fashion Blog. That was the original name. Anyway.
Okay, Hannah's Fashion Blog. You guys have to go and check this out.
But it's certainly that was, it was something that at the time was just a joyful source, but ended up becoming a really important anchor for me in this time of challenges, because I was facing a number of issues from being in and out of school to, social difficulties and of course the physical health challenges as well. So I'm sure you can understand it was a really important outlet. But basically what happened was, through those skills that I just, happened to start building because I was curious. Like, I would look at these bigger websites like the Man Repeller, the Sartorialist, some of these incredible fashion outlets, and think, how can I emulate some of the elements, the visual elements on my blog? Because obviously mine was just a passion project. And so I started to hack my website essentially and learned little tricks and tips just for, talking basics when it comes to HTML and logo design and so forth. But then I ended up having some different business owners and entrepreneurs reach out to me asking, who designed your website, who designed your logo? And so it kind of just spurred this journey in the more general kind of branding and marketing space, and understanding how the skills that I'd learned as a fashion blogger did not only apply to fashion blogging, but also applied to anybody who wanted to share something with others. And so now in the digital age, when everyone and their dog has an Instagram account, it's a very different landscape. But at the time it was new, and it was something that enabled me to open some doors. So all started with that little blog.
You started that, and then you were Miss County Dublin.
Yes. So, this is a journey spanning a decade, I suppose you could say, because the blog started
when I was...
It feels like a lifetime, many lifetimes in one. But I suppose that kind of common theme, that love for fashion and beauty and that world, I suppose, made a lot of sense then later for me to have that interest in the pageant space. So having the opportunity to participate in my national pageant and to understand how one can take all of their passions and I suppose use that in a way with a platform like Miss Ireland or Feminine Miss India, it's very exciting for a young woman, I think.
And what does a day in a pageant look like?
Well, I would say every day is different,
Okay.
because one of the things, as we were discussing previously, that I love about it is how it's a great way for young women to become really well-rounded.
Right.
So there's not just the ramp aspect or the nice dresses aspect. There's, different elements like harnessing your talents and kind of honing those and using your skills to either better your community, whether it's with charity projects or social initiatives, or putting yourself outside of your comfort zone just to develop as a person, whether it's, speaking, whether it's interviews, whether it's prep for the runway, which is obviously a very exciting but also outside of your comfort zone environment for young women when you're all of a sudden the only person at the end of a runway and lots of people are staring at you. So there's a whole host of things, from confidence building to community participation. So every day looks a bit different, but that's what makes it really enjoyable.
How exciting. And what was your favorite day?
I think for me personally, what I really love is when everything can come together. So actually during this trip, I had the opportunity to visit the Times Lifestyle Week and the fashion shows here in Delhi, which was a beautiful, I mean, you know all about that.
No, and it's beautiful. And Michael did this with Rashi and with Payal, and you were gracing the ramp with...
Yes, but what was so interesting for me was that, of course, it's a celebration of fashion and textiles and tradition in the sense of the artisanal capabilities, but also impact. So that's a great example, I think, of what I am so passionate about, because it brings together the glitz and the glamour side, let's say, which can be a fun part of it, but also what's most important, which is how do we use these platforms, how do we tell stories, how do we help people see how opportunity can be more than sometimes we can imagine individually. So with these young girls who were in this fashion show, these 6 incredible young designers from rural communities who were uplifted by YFlow Delhi and by the M3M Foundation, it was very, very inspiring. And so it's days like that for me that are the most exciting.
It together. And I'd love to sort of segue into this, like, a lot of times you look at beauty pageants and there's this thought that it's objectifying women. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel that I understand why people would think that. However, having been in the position and chosen to, I suppose, put myself forward in that capacity, it is something that when a woman is given the opportunity to stand in who she is, whatever age, it can be very empowering and it can be very important, I think, in actually anchoring yourself to be able to move forward and do whatever it is that you feel called to do. Because we all have different callings. But when you look at these women, there are doctors, there are lawyers, there are humanitarians, there are musical artists, a whole host of different creatives and abilities and professions. But what the common denominator is how can we just empower her to be who she is? Because she can.
Because I love that.
So I think that if you just shift your perspective and instead look at the elements that maybe make someone feel uncomfortable for whatever reason, and instead look at it just simply as an empowerment platform, and you take away all the bells and whistles, then when someone can stand in who she is and be able to express herself, that's the greatest gift you can give to an individual. But it doesn't have to be through beauty pageants. This is why I'm also a big believer in educational pathways or opportunities with sports. It's about finding where do you fit, what makes you feel empowered and expressed, and then just staying in that lane and putting yourself out there, because when you do, even if it can be a bit scary, that's when beautiful things can happen.
And I think it's good to be uncomfortable, and that's really how you're growing. And with your work and beauty with a purpose, you work with many charities. Can you share your experience or the impact that you've had through this work?
I've been very lucky to meet some amazing people who I feel are the real life superheroes. Rashi, our mutual friend, is one of those, and she's created an amazing environment with the Lakshyam NGO. And there have been other opportunities I've had, such as Hope for Homeless, which is a
Okay.
charity from my country. So, of course, being from Ireland, it's important also to understand that we face our challenges too. And so that's a charity that helps people who are struggling with, resources, having access to resources, some having no home, some just simply having, not enough in relation to what we need nowadays. The rising living crisis, the cost of living crisis, excuse me, but also having the chance to visit other countries, such as with the Yiannis Christodoulou Foundation, which is a children's charity that is anchored in Cyprus, but also works globally. I've had the chance to sit with people from parents to children going through challenges and obstacles that they're facing, and then also being here in India and witnessing a number of different projects and people who are doing tremendous work in different communities. It's opened my eyes to, one, I suppose, the severity of issues and how we really need to be aware first and foremost, and we can't change everything. But there's a beautiful quote that has always stuck with me, which is that we may not be able to change the world, but we can change one world.
Wow.
And I mean, I have chills when I say that, because I think for me, what I've really realized is we don't realize the power that we have.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be with going to a charity or starting this grand project. It could be picking up the phone and calling your grand uncle or your grand aunt or grandmother and saying, how are you today? And just giving time and presence, or spending time with people in your community or friends, checking in on a friend. Mental health being a huge obstacle today. So I think just finding where you connect and what you can do, and realizing that you actually have so much to give to someone, that's been the biggest impact it's had on me and lesson that I've learned. And just taken away a lot of inspiration, and I suppose the desire to dive deeper into that and to better understand these challenges and these obstacles, to hopefully create a conversation that can be eliciting some sort of positive change.
You're also a beauty queen. Do you feel like people welcome you? Is there resistance? What's the balance between giving back, philanthropy? Is it something that people get attracted? What's that experience been like for you?
But what I've noticed is that especially the children, they tend to really enjoy the crown and the sash and so forth. And I can relate to that, because when I grew up, I liked to witness the magic of the creative arts and so forth. And so for me, I just see that as a symbol or a token. But really, people have been so welcoming and so open, which has been something that's floored me, to be frank. I mean, I shared with you some of the experiences I've had on this trip, and how going to some of these villages, these people, no one has to be open. You're perfectly within your right to say,
to not say that, hey, I'm going to be in my box.
Exactly. But the connection has been very moving. And I would also say that what's inspired me through these experiences, and especially in the past year, there have been many experiences for me that have just opened my eyes in many senses. But what's been very interesting is that in some of those environments, there have been language barriers. But even with the language barriers, I think the energy or the intention or the space that's being held, let's say, whatever word you want to use, has meant that some of the connections I felt actually have been some of the most profound. And it makes me, I suppose it really reminded me that actually when we come to a simpler outlook and just recognize that we're all human beings, and we're all the same. We all have the same challenges, the same emotions, the same, obstacles, the demons that we face, wherever you come from and whatever you're experiencing. Then we can actually come together and have a much more, I suppose, positive bond, which can actually contribute then to how do we support each other, whatever that looks like. One person may need a phone call just to check in and see how they're doing. Someone else may need some resources or some, help with accessibility to certain things. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just about recognizing that actually we all need something, and how can we help each other find it.
No, I love that. And I think you just need to have the ability and the guts to make that first move. And I think that's what we all struggle with. So, so one of the things that's been trending is that Miss Universe used to have this age limit for contestants of 28 years. And then they removed it. So, and it sparked this conversation about age inclusivity. in beauty competitions. And what do you think of this, or what are your views on this? And how does this impact pageants or society's perceptions of beauty?
Well, it's certainly a major conversation at the moment. And I think it's a very important conversation because I don't feel personally that anyone should be limited by age, right? We grow, we get better with age, we learn more, we have more experiences, and there's so much beauty in that. So being able to share that, whatever age you are, I think is really, really important. So I love the fact that it's empowering women of all ages. However, it's also, on the other side of the coin, a conversation that I'm curious to dive into a little bit more is how do we, recognizing that there is so much beauty throughout the entire process, how can we though compare somebody who may be starting their journey with somebody who may be like much further into it? Like if you take an 18-year-old competitor, even within the bracket of 18 to 28, you know, if you take an 18-year-old competitor along with a 28-year-old competitor, they're obviously in a closer age bracket, but there still are these nuances or these differences in experiences. And, you know, we're all on a growth journey, I suppose. So it's something that I'm kind of, this conversation, I suppose, has elicited some thought within me just about what that means on a general level, whether it's a pageant or otherwise. So I'm kind of curious to see what the likes of your thoughts would be, because obviously you've been such a,
you know, age has changed, right? I feel so many women are now starting out at 30, 40, 50. We're living longer. So even within beauty, can we just have different standards of beauty and define that more and more versus pitch one against the other?
And I think when we also step back and look at it from the perspective like you shared of just how do we empower everyone, if you actually take away a title or you take away a crown and you just think about the process, it's the most beautiful thing to be able to include everyone within that process and to celebrate those skills, those unique elements that make us who we are, and to bring women together. So I think at the end of the day, the conclusion for me is probably that it's beautiful if we take away the result and we just think about the whole process, which, as life is, it's a journey, it's a process, that's where we get the growth from, then it can be a really wonderful thing.
I love that. So, I mean, and I like this, you know, you talk about women from different perspectives, getting women together. And how do you maintain and build friendships? Like, is it catty? Is it bitchy? Because I think every single pageant movie that you've seen has sort of cat fights and women like pitted against each other. So, you know, how do you bring that together versus when you're competing for this one title in this current process?
Well, to be very frank with you, I feel like if you look for cattiness, you'll find it, pageant or not. You'll find it in a work environment, you'll find it in social environments. So if you kind of take the step back and just recognize that, again, it's an environment where many personalities are coming together. Just as in life, we may not all
some stronger,
sit together and feel completely, you gel with every single person that you engage with. But what I've found is that actually some of the most amazing women I now have in my life I've met through these types of opportunities. So I think it all depends on how you go into it. But if you go into it wanting to, of course, put your best foot forward, and if it's meant to be, it will happen that you become that title holder, you have that opportunity, then you will walk away with beautiful new relationships in your life that can really empower you. It's like one of my close friends is the current Miss Universe Ireland. She's a beautiful woman called Aisha. So hello, Aisha, if you're watching. And she's just phenomenal, running social initiatives and with a legal background, and also stunning person inside and out. And we've become really good friends through this competition environment, and now we're sharing this experience together. And I think it's just about how do we take those relationships and recognize that even if you do become a title holder, it's a 1-year process. So it's not your life, it's a stepping stone. It's a platform. And I think when you look at it from that perspective, then these relationships are much more long-term, and they can hold a lot of longevity in who you're becoming, not just who you are.
And I don't know, and maybe there's this mental perception. It's like when you see a group of women and they're competing, you immediately think that they're going to be catty, right? Like I think if there are a group of men and they're competing, then you're thinking of like brotherhood, right? So it's I think we need to maybe just change that mental models of saying that a bunch of girls together is just a sisterhood, right? Like,
right. And I think, look, of course, most of the time people going into these environments would love to win. And there's
right,
absolutely nothing wrong with
right,
that either.
right.
I think there can be a healthy element to
Absolutely.
competition. And if it's pushing you to be better, then that's
Why
always
not?
a good outcome.
Yeah.
But it's also about recognizing that I do feel that at the end of the day, your biggest competition is yourself. And I know it can sound a bit cliche, but it really is the truth. Like, how can you better yourself? How can you be, a version of you that's more open, more evolved than you were before? I think if you can focus on that, then at the end of the day, with things like this, there is an element of personal opinion, and a different panel might choose a different winner.
Right.
So you never know, but when it's your day, and you should celebrate that. But I think in the process, there's a lot of opportunity to be found.
And I like that. If it's your day, like, grab it,
Celebrate.
enjoy it, celebrate it, like
Yes.
that there's enough to be sorry about or cry about, and
Sure.
celebrate. So we had a few, Miss USAs who resigned from their title recently because of a toxic work environment. And there's serious concerns about the reputation and treatment of its contestants. Do you realize that there are issues, or do you believe that these platforms have certain challenges, and what could be done to address it, or to just ensure that there is no misuse or exploitation going forward?
I feel firstly it's really unfortunate that they felt the need to step down, because I know from my own experience how meaningful this type of opportunity is to a young woman who's poured herself into this process.
Right.
So when you finally achieve it, to let go of it must have been so disappointing for them. However, it's quite clear to me that they had a reason for that. And so diving into that reason and having that conversation around it is, I think, so important, and something that I believe the people who are also the fans of the pageant community and the fans of these two wonderful women deserve to have answers on. So I think kind of enabling that conversation is something that we should definitely support, but it also points to a broader conversation, not just about pageants, but in general work environments. Like,
Right.
when do we draw a line and recognize that actually we have to take care of ourselves first and our health first? This is something that I am particularly passionate about, I suppose, because of my own experience with it's in a different capacity, but with health
Right.
challenges, and kind of recognizing that we know when something's not right for us. And so having that support from your family, your loved ones, your supporters, to stand in that and stand firmly in that is something that's very important. And I think talking about making sure that we have environments that are safe and that are respectful, like, we all deserve to live a dignified life and to have respect from others, and from how we communicate as well, of course. But I think that it's really unfortunate, and something that I hope we'll get more clarity on as supporters, let's say, of these two women.
And I guess what I'm taking away from you is that it's not just about a beauty pageant, and it's not just it, but it's just about any work environment being toxic, and there needs to be systems and processes that are built in that addresses it. It shouldn't need someone to give up a title. It shouldn't need to become news before someone does anything, right? I feel these are just systems and processes that need to be in place.
Yes, and I feel one of the interesting things of today is that now, largely because of social media, everyone has a voice,
Right.
which has been a very interesting experience for me, even being here and kind of visiting a lot of different environments. Like, phones and technology is absolutely integral now to how we communicate and how we interact with one another. And so that means that issues become more global, they become more community oriented, because if one person uses their voice, it can become a domino effect, even more powerful than what was possible before. And so I think it's really important to also look at how we are no longer brushing things under the carpet. And I think organizations that choose to do that, which my understanding is that may have been the case in this regard, it won't work, because people will demand more.
Yes.
And I think that's a wonderful thing, that we can be in that environment, but it's about how do we now create the stepping stones, I suppose, so that we don't have to get to that point. And as you say, we can find solutions by looking at things at face value before it gets to that level.
I love that. Again, this is a little bit about we're talking about beauty pageants, we're talking about, them talking about certain beauty standards. Similarly, I think social media, there's this huge perpetuation of, unreal beauty standards, from filters and,
Oh, yes.
so, what do you feel about, just beauty standards in general? The second thing that I'm really interested in is, cosmetic surgery, cosmetic enhancements. How does that impact beauty pageants? Should that be allowed? Should that be regulated?
I feel personally, for me, what it comes down to is how do we feel most confident in
Right.
ourselves? And I suppose having the right to choose because we can
Yes.
is also very important. However, I think with anything, it's just about making sure that there's safe conversations around it and there are safe pathways, because what can be a challenge now, which is where my interest goes, is because of social media, because of young people, especially their access to information that is influencing them in many senses, and many of those being negative ones. It's something that we absolutely have to be aware of. So, um, you know, kind of how do we make sure that, especially when it comes to physical adjustments, I don't think that should necessarily be the thing that we're leading with. A
Right.
filter, okay, you can, there are some fun filters on
Yes.
Snapchat. I know children
Yes.
especially can get a
Yes.
little kick out
Yes.
of it, let's say, with some of
Yes.
those funny ears and things like that. But when it comes to actually changing yourself, I'm also a big believer that this is the outside is just, it's the outside. So it's for me about kind of looking inward and thinking, what do I maybe need to address or overcome or handle? I think if you can do that introspection, then if you're an adult and you feel you want to make a certain decision, then that's by all means your choice. But I think when it comes to young people especially, we need to be way more aware of also how, when we share something, like, as adults, if we're sharing it with our community online, children are seeing that.
Right.
So what are we saying? And are we choosing to say something that could negatively impact them, or something that could inspire them to recognize that actually they're whole, perfect, and complete just as they are?
I agree. No, but then what would you feel that should, if you do have cosmetic enhancements, does that then take away the authenticity of, say, the result of a pageant? Because it's engineered beauty versus real beauty. Does it even matter?
I feel that actually the better answer to your question is just, how do you feel?
Right.
If someone wants to make a decision that makes them feel good, then they should be enabled to do that. Right. But at the end of the day, the most beautiful people that you engage with are the ones who walk into a room and you can feel their confidence, you can feel their joy, you can feel their aura.
Yes.
And that is not about whether or not you're styled a certain way, or you're wearing a certain outfit, or you look a certain way. It's about what's coming from the inside out. So that's also a conversation with children. Like, again, it goes back to sports, music, pageants. What are the enablers that we have to help them feel that confidence and assurity in themselves and their skill set? That's what's exciting. And all of these platforms are just, again, platforms.
Giving you the platform
chance
to...
Exactly.
So tell me, what next? Like, where do you see this journey going, and what is Hannah gonna do?
Who knows? No, good question. So for me, I feel that the next step is something that I'm really excited about. So obviously Miss International is taking place this November in Japan. So there's about 6 months leading up to the competition. And because it is a once in a lifetime opportunity, I do feel that I want to pour my energy into the experience, because I think the experience is so special. Even being here with you today, that's largely because of this path and how things have unfolded. And that's something that I'm so thankful for. So I'm planning to pour more of my energy and myself into that, focusing more on my creative projects such as modeling and music. Singing is a very important part of my life and something that I'm incredibly passionate about. So one of the things that, through these experiences with some of these NGO projects and getting to immerse myself in different cultures and with different people, one of those tools that I mentioned, helped to maybe break down some barriers when there's like language barriers or just differences, is music. And I love being able to kind of share in that, from sharing some songs from my country or music that I like, but also having the likes of the Laksham children sing some of the songs they like to
Oh
me.
my
Or
God.
I visited one of the self-employed women's associations, farmers co-ops, last year, and I went and met these incredible women in this, cooperative in Ahmedabad, just outside Ahmedabad, and they shared some beautiful songs with me, and it was just such a moving experience. Even though you can't understand necessarily
Right,
what the other one is saying, you can
right.
just feel.
You can just feel it. You feel this
Yes,
thing,
it's
and
that aura, right? It's that aura. So I'm very excited to see how music can be a bigger part of
So
my
I'm
story.
going to hold you on that. I'm going to ask
know what's
you, would you sing something for us? Would
Of
you hum
course.
us something?
Sure. So one of my favorite songs is "At Last" by Etta James.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more soulful. Or there's another song that it's actually a Disney song, "A Whole New World."
Oh, a whole
That
new
I
world.
found. Yeah, this is the song when I'm with the children. Haven't done a warm up though, so let's see how it
I'm
sounds.
so excited.
Hopefully, it sounds okay. I can show you the world, shining, shimmering, splendid. Tell me, princess, now when did you last let your heart decide? I can open your eyes, take you wonder by wonder, over, sideways, and under, on a magic carpet ride. A whole new world, a new fantastic point of view. No one to tell us no, or where to go, or say we're only dreaming. A whole new world.
Oh my God. Sorry, that was just, you were so, oh my God, I have goosebumps.
Thank you.
You have a stunning voice.
Thank you.
Have you been learning?
I've always loved music. So ever since I was a little girl, this was also something that when I was facing my health challenges, I found music, like the fashion blog, to be a very important outlet and survival mechanism, quite frankly. But off the back of that, over the years, I have done different singing lessons and performing arts opportunities and things like this. So it's something that is a very important part of my life.
You are incredible, and you are such an inspiration. Inspiration for young girls who want to follow your footsteps, who want to win that crown. What would your advice to them be?
What I later learned was that you're never denied, you're just redirected.
Right.
And so whether it's a crown or something else, like if you just really focus on finding who you are, and that's a process I think I'm still going to continue finding myself, hopefully for many more years to come, then if you can just connect with what's really important to you and what you really are passionate about, then that's when the most beautiful things can emerge. And you can even be surprised that things you maybe thought were not going to happen can, like my opportunity now to go to Miss International. Wow. Is a dream come true for me. And that's something that I think every young person, girl or boy, should be empowered to recognize, that stepping into that and walking that path, even when it can be a little challenging at times, that's when things can happen. So just have faith and know that you're absolutely worthy and you can be whoever you want to be.
I love that. Should we do some with the crown?
With the crown? You want the crown?
Yeah. Oh God, I want the crown. Oh my God, that's so pretty. Okay, so quick question. This is just fun rounds. Who's your favorite Disney princess?
I grew up always loving Belle from Beauty and the Beast.
What did Hannah want to be as a child?
Probably my biggest dream was to be a singer. That was
Which we're getting there. We're definitely there.
I just loved performing arts and being on stage and telling stories. So that was always my childhood dream, I suppose.
Your fitness hack?
I would say getting my steps in.
Okay.
It's been a bit difficult, I have to admit, though, here in India, because the heat has been very intense. And I've been running around doing lots of different things. But what I generally try to do is, if I'm very busy or if things are happening and it may not be easy to get to a gym or a workout class, just walking, you know, being outside, moving your body, getting fresh air, maybe listening to some music or a podcast, for example. That's probably my fitness hack. I think if you can try to get your 10K steps a day, then you'll feel
get
good.
that. I love that. And superpower, like what would a secret superpower be for you?
I wouldn't have necessarily referred to it as a superpower, but I think what I really enjoy is just connecting with people. And, you know, from, like I said, language barriers to other differences, it just feels like it all disappears when you just sit and connect with someone. So that's probably at least the thing I love the most.
What does because she can mean for you?
For me, because she can means because she can. So not doing something because someone else told you to, or because you feel you should do it for somebody else or society or whatever it is that's influenced you, but just recognizing that whatever is within, whatever really lights you up and sets your soul on fire, choosing to walk in that path just because you want to is what because she can means.
I love that. Love that. And really, honestly, thank you for being here.
Glad you, Bob.
And we have a small...
for having me.